for tuning in to Sis Let's Talk Leadership. My name is Kristi Burns.
And I'm Meliza Walsh.
And this is where we unmask the myths.
And we on the journey.
And so today we have a very special guest, Miss Katie Burr. And before we get started into what our topic actually is, into this amazing discussion, we're going to let her introduce herself.
Awesome. My name's Katie Burr. I am a senior RT leader, cover multiple departments at a children's hospital. I've been in RT for 16 years and in leadership for a little over a decade. I am a mom. I have 3 kiddos, a husband, a cat, a dog. All the chaos that happens in your house happens in mine. And I'm so happy to be here with all of you.
Yes, and we are so happy to have you. I kind of know we talked a little bit before, this all started, but we follow you, Katie, and we follow you heavily. And we've come to your talks at the AARC and the summer forum, and we've heard you speak, and the common denominator has been, don't take it personal, right? So with that being said, our topic today is triggered or trained, mastering emotional control in leadership. And so before we get started with that, Meliza, do you have anything that you want to add about how we kind of came to that with Katie?
To the topic or to Katie speaking on the topic? Okay.
Both.
So
how it related.
both,
And so
yeah.
I was telling her, like, we didn't talk about it. And we ended up coming to the same conclusion.
Mm-hmm. We sure did. So I am clearly a fan of yours, just in general, out of life. Like, I know that I reached out to you personally as I was going through a rough patch in leadership. And there was nothing more than just a very loving slap across the face of get your act together. You need to be a cheerleader. Like, this is not about you. This is what they need. And in order for you to get to a good spot, you need to stop being so triggered by what's happening around you. But we met because of Emerging Leaders program, and I had met you before, but it was that moment that I think has changed so much for me. And I really have appreciated the way that you navigate a lot of the emotional intelligence, the psychological safety, the thinking, very forthcoming, being unapologetically you. Like, I distinctly remember sitting at a table and you're like, this is how I talk, take it or leave it. And I was like, I really like it because it's very relatable. It makes you feel like I could just be me. Like, I don't have to put up a front. And in your introduction, I especially love that you said that the chaos that happens in our home happens in yours, because I think that people sometimes think that, you have it all together, you're perfect in every way and you do everything perfectly and you're so organized. But I really love how real you are, even listening to you in the podcast that you guys were on with Kristi on Joel's podcast a couple of months ago, and kind of talking a lot about that. But to me, this specific topic I felt was so perfect for you because it's a lot of what you do as you're mentoring other leaders. And it's something that you poured into me that made a huge impact that I think has led to decisions that I've made later on and has allowed me to be bold and not necessarily be loud, but be present and engaged in a way that, okay, if you don't want to join my cheering squad, that's cool, but I'm just going to continue to cheer on this way. And I hope you join me on this path because it's really fun.
You're so sweet. Thank you guys so much. It means a lot to me that I was able to give you a nugget that was helpful and ultimately that you'll be able to share with other people. I think that's what makes us better humans and what makes us better as a profession. And ultimately, I think that's all we owe to each other is how are we good humans? How can we advance the profession together? And it comes from a place of like really just wanting everyone to have their best shot at being successful and being happy. And if we get triggered by everything that happens in our lives, there's no way we're going to be happy. Our cortisol levels are going to go up. Our blood pressure is going to increase. We're going to increase our risk of Alzheimer's and dementia. Like, it's just horrible things that happen to you when like that is your mindset. Yeah.
Not for nothing though, Katie, like Kristi and I were talking earlier, and Kristi, weren't you like, I know you've had like a lot on your plate with work and you're like, I feel like I have like brain fog. And it gets really crazy that way where you kind of start forgetting. And you're just like, I don't even know what I'm supposed to be doing, but I'm supposed to be doing something.
Yeah. I mean, I literally remember standing up in my office the other day. Maybe it was yesterday, but I was standing up in the office and I just could not remember. I know, like, why I stood up, where I was going, what I was doing. Was it time for a meeting? Who was I supposed to meet? Like, I felt my brain like And I was like, okay, this is not cool. So take a moment. I took a deep breath, drunk some water, and then pulled up my calendar. And I was like, okay, here we are. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I was good. But it's real. And it I'm pretty sure that stemmed from being overwhelmed from some of the interactions and things that I've dealt with for the past 2 weeks at work. And it's not that it's bad. It's just that it's a lot going on. And I think that depending on how we respond and if we're triggered or if we're trained behind how we respond, it makes a difference. And I think some of the brain fog that I was having was probably more so from triggers than being trained. And that's just me being transparent.
Yeah. I think if you have never been triggered at work, you might not actually be working.
Yeah.
There's not a human who goes through life without those triggers, and
Yeah.
it is a bit of the way your brain is wired to work. Your
Yeah.
brain is wired to keep you safe, and it is looking, constantly scanning for stuff that is going to harm you, and its job is to keep you alive. And so
Mm.
it's scanning things around you going, "Oh, this is stressful. We don't want to do this today. Oh, this person's scary. I need to stay away from them." And constantly scanning your environment going, all right, what do I need to do so I don't die today? And that
Mm.
seems like really extreme, but like that is the wiring that is in your brain. And if we don't recognize that that's happening, it causes us to stifle our growth, to not take risks, to not push through things that are stressful. We've all done stressful things successfully, but we have
Yeah.
to tell ourselves that we've done stressful things before and it's been okay and we're still alive if we want to keep doing it and keep jumping into it, which is where we really have our biggest opportunity to grow. And that's the cool part about all of this is growth and our relationships as humans and how we can grow together through being triggered. Because ultimately, again, if you haven't been triggered at work, I want your job. Please let me know what private island you're on, which millionaire is paying your bills, because it's just not realistic.
That was good. Mic drop. Let's get started and play a game. And so in this game, we're basically going to finish the sentence. And so we have 10 seconds to answer. Hopefully 10 seconds. That was created by Meliza because I said 30 and she was like, 30 is too long.
Okay.
So 10 seconds.
That's a premeditated
It
thought
is.
at that point.
It is. It is. You are absolutely right. You're absolutely right. So 10 minutes. All right. So first one, a triggered leader usually sounds like.
Chaos.
It's a dramatic.
Oh,
No, I didn't hear you.
I just made a sound because that's what it sounds like.
Okay. Okay. That was good. Wow. Okay. That was good. So a trained leader pauses because
To
They
regulate.
care?
be intentional. So emotional control does not mean
No feelings.
No anger.
that I can't let it out.
That's true.
You said no anger. That's good too. The fastest way to lose credibility is.
To react without thought.
Showing you're crazy.
I'm going to go with Katie. Like, you need to think. So that is the easiest way to lose credibility if I'm not thinking before I'm speaking. My intent is not becoming their reality. Last one. Leadership maturity shows up when.
Every
do the
day,
work.
in every place. It's not an option for leaders not to have maturity show up every day in every interaction.
Yeah, I'm going to say every environment. Yeah, and it shows up every day. Like you said, it doesn't matter whether it's professional or whether it's personal.
Good Lord. Sad.
And so that was good. So I guess starting out, a question for me is, and it took me some time with same thing, being in leadership for a little over 10 years. I know I look like I'm 12, but I struggled with being triggered and trying to make a response or respond in a way where I wasn't seeming offensive, because I know sometimes, being a straight shooter and then how you say it when you're saying what you say makes a difference. And so what would be your advice, I guess, for leaders who kind of struggle with that? Like, I feel like I'm on the up and up and I've done so much better. I see the growth. But what advice would you give to individuals who may be struggling in that area right now, like on how to say it, your tone? What do you do when you need to be responding versus reacting?
I think probably the number one piece of advice I would give people is pause. If you can't pause, you have no free will in any situation. Doesn't matter if it's good, bad, ugly, indifferent. If you react without a pause, you put the bus on autopilot, you take yourself out of the driver's seat, whatever analogy you want to use,
Mhm,
you lose control when you react quickly. And
mhm,
so I would tell everyone there is one thing that happens for healthcare leaders that requires immediate action, and that is CPR, patients dying. We need someone in this room now.
mhm,
Everything else is not an emergency. Everyone's going to make it feel like it's an emergency. 50 people come to my door all day long, every day. Emergency, emergency, emergency. None of them are emergencies. Pause. If
mhm,
you can pause, that is like the first step in being able to regulate instead of being triggered.
mhm. Well, that's good. When I studied a little bit, I'm sure you've heard of the emotions wheel?
I
Yeah.
love the wheel. Robert Plutnik, 1980s,
Yeah.
Wheel of Emotion.
Yeah, so I studied the emotions wheel, and pause was one of the first things that they said, but then they also said that you need to be able to truly pinpoint the emotion that you're feeling because then you can't really determine how you're gonna respond if you don't know the actual emotion that's being triggered. So just because you're thinking that you're upset, it makes you dive a little bit deeper into, okay, why are you upset? So I think what I basically put out there in like this leadership development group is that if you're able to name it, then you can reframe it. And then after I'm able to reframe it, now I can tame it.
I would say as you tame, you actually use those emotions
Yeah.
to understand yourself, to connect, to grow with others. I think the part that was you talk about like being triggered or sharing emotions, I can tell you I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm pissed off, I'm indifferent, whatever the word is, without yelling at you, without
Mhm.
crying, without tears, fears, all those emotions. And that comes from practice
Mm,
and affect labeling. But where you really win in leadership is being able to share that in a vulnerable way with people without adding the other emotions back to it.
mhm,
So if we're in a tense conversation or we disagree on something, I can share. I feel like this is very tense and
mhm,
it bothers me that we're not able to find a solution we agree on. I think we need to step away. I think we need to look at this from a different perspective. I think we need to bring someone else in. I think we need to consult the rules or the policies or the procedures or whatever it is. But being able to share that in the moment takes
mm.
you to the next level of affect labeling. Again, being a leader is not being a robot. It's not, you can't feel anything, you can't share your emotions. But when you do that in front of your team members or with other leaders or your children, all of this is translatable, transferable in every aspect of human connection.
Yeah.
When you do that, we give other people permission to share their feelings as well. And we've just given them a script to do it in the same way, where we
Mm.
can say that we're angry or we disagree without yelling, without standing up, without using our hands, without using profanity, whatever, expletives people generally use when they're feeling that emotion. And I think that's the cool part about really taking that emotion labeling, affect labeling to the next level. It's not just
Mhm.
about you and how you're feeling, but it's how you share that with others.
Oh, that is so good. So, what I'm hearing also is that you need to be intentional about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That pause, I guess, lets you go into the reflection, and then
And
the reflection turns into how I can be vulnerable with you,
yes.
and
And
hopefully
I
in
think
turn.
it's really important for large teams, for meetings, because your team borrows your regulation
Mm,
before they build their own. You set the stage. What you give is what you're going to get. If
mhm,
I can share that I'm excited without bouncing off the walls and knocking things off shelves, or I can share that I'm upset with this organizational decision, but still be a logical leader and move things forward, then they can be upset and do the same thing too. They're just going to borrow that regulation that you
mm,
bring with them.
and that just goes into leading by example.
Mhm.
Katie, I do
Well,
have a
it seems like you were about
question.
to ask a question.
Yes, I was just curious. I know you mentioned that sometimes you have to make the space to have certain discussions to try to work through the hard things. How do you navigate situations where you can't address the issue in the moment and there might be some time gaps between when something happened that perhaps was triggering, even if it wasn't loud, but internally triggering, before you can address it with a colleague or a friend or a family member or whoever it may be?
So if the question is, how do you navigate tense situations if you can't address them in real time?
Mhm,
I think calling out that a situation didn't go the way we expected, didn't fit with our culture. I heard that maybe this happened. Help me understand your perspective. How do you think this interaction went? Is generally the way I would approach something like that. It's not, I know this went poorly. It's help me understand what happened, right? We have to get curious in order to move something forward. If
Mhm,
we go in already with our mind made up, if we share that something wasn't appropriate before we hear someone's side of their story, we immediately are going to put them on the defensive. And so I always go into those situations with curiosity and trying to understand what happened. There's two
mhm,
sides to every story. The truth is usually a combination of both of those. And, if you're not there, you're never truly going to know. Unless
mm,
there's a gross policy, regulation, something that, needs to be addressed. I'm going into it with curiosity and understanding. And this is an opportunity for us to be better humans, to be more relatable with our coworkers, to build better relationships, to build trust, to build psychological safety. So I don't go into those conversations thinking like I'm going to write someone up or, no matter what you tell me, you're going to be in trouble. Again, unless it is a gross policy violation, we're not tolerating those things. But a majority of these situations that happen are humans being humans, their behaviors, their opportunities for growth. And I think probably the biggest thing I would say to leaders is if you don't address them, but
mhm.
you're aware of them, you are complicit in them.
That's right.
Mm.
If someone is sharing something with you, whether you were there when it happened or not, if it upset them, if it doesn't align with the culture you want on your team, if you do not give feedback or understand it, you are giving permission for that same behavior to continue over and over again.
Mhm,
And so I always address it.
mhm.
I
That's
always
awesome.
reach out and I ask, can you talk? Let's chat about this. I heard maybe it didn't go perfectly. What was your take on the situation? And I try and understand from both sides. And then I try and offer skills, tips, or tricks that are going to help it go better next time. If
Mhm,
someone needs a facilitated conversation with someone else, depending on what the situation was, I will always offer my support there. But generally, we're talking about how we make sure when we go back into that situation
mhm,
that we're at a 3 out of 10, that we're not triggered, that we can manage our emotions. Sometimes that takes scripting. Let's talk about it. What would be the worst case scenario? What if they said this? What would the best case scenario be? What would it look like if we left the situation and you guys were best friends? And so we try and talk through things so that we can get to a place of understanding and that the person that I'm working with is going into it with support so that they don't end up in the same place they potentially were before.
I think that's good, and it goes into one of the topics that we've talked about before. It leads right into holding people accountable for their actions, if that is not the culture that you want and you're not giving them permission to do so. But have you ever caught yourself being surprised at something or someone's actions that triggered you? How did you, like, move through that to prevent it from happening again in the future?
Yeah, I'm a human. It happens multiple times a week. We all have Snickers moments. We all have situations where, maybe we're tired or we're dehydrated or we haven't had lunch yet or, whatever the case may be. My kids are yelling in my ear or, I'm late to get to something where
Mhm,
maybe we're not in a state where we feel like we can react how we normally would. I think a couple years ago, I was having a situation with someone who worked opposite shift. And so our communication was all going back and forth via email. They were upset about a situation and sent me an email after I requested, like, it seems like there's an understanding, like, can we sit down and talk? And so at about 4 o'clock in the morning, they sent a very lengthy email back to me about how they were upset, how they would never speak with me alone, how they didn't feel like that was appropriate. And at 6 o'clock in the morning, when I saw that email, I responded back very quickly and I said, I'm looping in our HRBP. Let's have a talk together then, which probably wasn't the best way to respond to that. I
mhm,
didn't even read the entirety of the email before I responded. I just saw, you don't want to talk to me
mhm.
alone. So, you know what? Let's get someone else involved.
Yeah.
I think, again, 6 o'clock in the morning, not reading the whole email. We all have moments where those types of things happen.
Mhm,
I was able to have a conversation with this person. We were able to get to a place where we had a mutual understanding. But, it gives me an opportunity to reflect. And I think that's the important part of leadership. I'm not waking up in the morning thinking like I want six-pack abs and like getting them overnight when I snap my fingers. I have to change how I eat. I have to make sure I'm intaking enough protein. I
mhm,
have to go to the gym. I might use a personal trainer. Like when we talk about being regulated and not triggered in our emotions, this isn't like the switch of a button. It's not wake up with magic six pack abs. It's exercise every single time that these situations come up. And it's about being intentional with that and using it to learn. I kind of relate emotions, if you want to analogy, climate, a storm, right? When you're triggered by your
Mhm.
emotions, that's a storm. It doesn't mean that the climate is broken and it's always going to storm forever.
Mhm.
It just means like we have a new piece of data and another piece of information to learn from. So I would say if someone hasn't had those moments, they're lying. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Have you had one?
Yeah, I've definitely had some. You got to be real with yourself, and that's what I try to tell myself too. And I think that relates back to what you just said about being vulnerable. I feel like over the years in leadership, I've learned how to do that, and the buy-in and the outcomes, the goals, the visions, the missions, all the things that we want the team to do after then, it happens when I'm vulnerable and I show them that, hey, I was once you. Hey, I understand where you're coming from. Hey, this is what I've learned. You know, try this next time. It really helps. And that makes all the difference. Melissa has a question here. So, do you ever avoid certain times to connect with others to build up emotional regulation?
I think at this point in my career, you could tell me you wanted to have a conversation at any time with any person, and I would probably dive in because I feel like I've practiced these skills a lot. I can't say I'm perfect all the time. Things still happen. There are certain conversations, though, that I think deserve a different level of privacy and time and respect based on the nature of things you may be talking about or how long something's been going on. So if I start to have a conversation with someone and it feels like I'm not going to be able to resolve it or get to the bottom of it, that's when I think I'm very intentional about setting aside time. And I try and really meet people where they are. If someone hasn't had enough time to digest and the first time they're coming to me, it's emotional vomit of all of the things that they need to say to get off their chest, that's not the right time to have a conversation and to move things forward. So as a leader, I think we owe it to the other people that we're interacting with, that we're leading, that are on our team, that we not only regulate our emotions and don't get triggered, but if they're in a state of being triggered, that we help them recognize that because we're not going to get anywhere productive in those conversations if we try and be the rational person and our team members are coming to us saying like, no, I thought you're on my side. And we're saying, calm down. Like that doesn't go well. So recognizing like sometimes people need to get it out and have a moment to themselves to decompress before we can be productive, I think is the other part of being a leader in these conversations.
So, would you agree with saying, based off of the information you just gave, that obviously each team member is different? Some people speak up for themselves, some don't do that so much, and if they do, they don't do it well. And whether it's the emotions take over and other things of that nature. So, in knowing your team and adapting and meeting them where they are, that you are going to the support to them in their emotional regulation is going to absolutely look different. You cannot
Yeah.
every situation the same way.
Yeah, I think what you can say is the same for everyone is everyone spills, right? Everyone's triggered. Everyone spills their coffee. Everyone has an accident, makes a mistake. People who are not triggered, right? Leaders clean up fast and without drama. It's not, oh my gosh, someone spilled their coffee. I have to clean this up. It's we clean up fast and we do it without drama. And so I think the thing I will say that as you're dealing with different team members, they generally come to you one of three ways. Cartman's drama triangle is a great way to use that analogy. If you haven't heard of it, it's a good thing to Google. But generally, people are coming to you as a victim, as a persecutor, or as a rescuer. They're coming to you saying, oh my gosh, fix my problem for me. And in healthcare, we fall for that often. It takes a whole lot not to fix someone's problems in a hospital. But when someone comes to us wanting to rescue them, please save me from this nurse, from this doctor, from this RT who won't do what I want them to do. It is our job to give them the skills to rescue themselves. Help them be a responsible adult, not solve their problems for them. When they're coming persecuting, this person did this to me because they hate me, right? I can't believe this happened. It is our job to be a reality checker.
Yeah.
Does this always happen? Are you sure that's why this decision was made? And so there's different things you can do in that scenario. And when someone comes to you as a victim, I can't believe, woe is me, poor me. This is, I can't do anything. This always happens to me. It is our job to be a coach. This doesn't always have to happen to you. Let's talk about what you can do to make sure this doesn't happen again. And I think that's the flexibility. When people come to you, they're all in a different place. But
Yeah.
human psychology tells us they're probably going to come in one of those three positions if there's some drama involved: persecutor, rescuer, or victim. That is usually what it is.
That is good. Oh my goodness. When you say Melissa, that's good.
I
And it gives you a
would.
different
Can
way
you
to
hear
look at
me?
things. And I like, yeah, yeah, yeah. It gives you a different approach by knowing what's already coming at you. Man, that was good. That was good. That was a gem. That's what they're gonna get right there. This is over. But that was good. I guess a question that I would have is how to stay emotionally controlled without becoming disconnected or cold. Because sometimes I feel like things can be perceived that way, and that's not how we mean to do it. So how, as a leader, or what would you suggest to do as a leader in order to stay emotionally regulated, but to not appear disconnected or cold?
Yeah. I don't know that I'm the expert or the best person to tell you that. I mean, one of the things that I'm very vulnerable about sharing with people
Yeah.
is the fact that emotional connection is one of the skills consistently that I say I'm working on. Because I have what I would hope to say are strong emotional regulation skills, and because I have a D personality style, I am very type A. I am goal oriented, list driven. I want to get things done. And so in the very beginning of my leadership career, I intentionally put on agendas,
Mm-hmm.
connect to purpose, connect with people, ask them about their kids, ask them about their family. Because if I don't intentionally take time for that, if the meeting starts at 12 o'clock, we're getting started. Here's the agenda. Let's go. We got to get these 10 things done before we're done at 12:30. And so sometimes feedback I still get is that I'm not emotional or I don't connect enough. And so I think the way I kind of see it is, as you're talking about emotional regulation and not being triggered, being regulated lowers the volume.
Mm,
It doesn't get rid of what you're feeling.
yeah.
And sometimes lowering the volume
Mm,
in a society where things are highly polarized and, it works well. Our brains are wired to be loud when things don't go our way and it wants to keep us safe. When you lower the volume, sometimes people perceive that as less feeling, as less connection, as less real. And that's never my intent. I mean, I have feelings just like everybody else, right? But I maybe different, more straightforward way, which seems less connected or less real. So that's something I have to always consider in the way that I'm sharing, because the problem or the emotion never gets quieter. It's I got quieter or the person regulated and that sounds quieter. But in a lot of these situations, silence is the most powerful thing. If
mm,
something can happen to you and you can be silent as you process,
mm-hmm.
that's very powerful.
That is very powerful. I feel like in most of the situations where I have stayed silent because I may have been triggered and I'm trying to switch over into being trained, the response that I receive is not one of the best. It's because they're thinking that, oh, you're so stoic. Well, what are you thinking? Well, what does that mean? And I'm like, well, I'm trying to process what you just stated to me because that was very disrespectful, but trying to find the way to properly respond, but not be associated with being stoic and not having emotions. So I think that that was a great tip that you just gave on that right there.
Yeah, I try and sometimes use words that feel bigger than they need to.
Okay.
And sometimes it sounds like a bit corny, but if someone's doing something that's harmful, ouch. I don't have to raise my voice. I don't have to yell. I don't have to change the tone of my voice. Ouch. I'm not sure that came across the way you thought it should. As a way to kind of recognize that it caused me to feel something, and generally just sharing kind of how I'm feeling
Mm-hmm.
is a way that I try and regulate that. Again, if people think it comes off as robotic or not real because it's not big,
Mm-hmm.
I can't change their opinion. I know it's true to me and I know that I'm sharing it, but I think, you have to do what works for you, and everyone's going to process emotions differently, and everyone's entitled to be able to do that. There are boundaries with being a professional that
Mm-hmm.
we're all held to, but there's a way, along that spectrum to be you in a professional manner. And it's about finding that happy place that feels good for each person.
Yeah. What is that happy medium where you're not too cold, you're not too hot, but you're just right,
That
and
goes, man.
right, 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 right. Yeah. So, okay. Is there an emotional habit that as a leader you think people should unlearn?
Instant gratification, instant resolution. Fast is not easy, fast is not right.
Mhm.
You owe it to yourselves, to have the space, the time, the energy put aside to process things, to think through things, to brainstorm. So I think in a society that moves so quickly, oftentimes we want an immediate answer. We want an immediate resolution. We want an immediate solution when we escalate things. And it's intensified in healthcare because when we're dealing with patient care, if I can't get the IV pump to work or if the code blue button doesn't work, right, then someone dies. That's not generally the case with emotional regulation. And so I would say if everyone could take away the instant part of kind of how society makes us feel, like we can escalate something and we can live in it and we can feel in it for a while before we decide what we're going to do with it.
That's good. That is really good. And so Melissa said that the analogy that you gave earlier made her think of some of the characters from Encanto Disney movie. Do you remember
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
That was a good movie, by the way.
Uh-huh.
And so she says, Katie, you obviously have an amazing team. So I have met and have gotten to know several of them, and they are all great fun and incredibly smart.
Every
So
single
can you
one.
tell us a little bit about how you brought such an awesome group of leaders together?
I don't know that I take credit for that. I have a great team of people who I work with every day. If anyone's looking for like tips and tricks, I think the more we can allow people to be their authentic self at work
Mm.
and create safe spaces for them to share their feelings and, to intersect work and home and, to share vulnerably, it allows people to feel safe and to take risks and, to be willing to share, which creates connection and builds trust. Probably, truthfully, most people on my team were there when I got my role. I've only hired a small portion of them. And so I'll give credit to the people before me, but also to the people who are in those roles. They earned them, they deserve them, they're there for a reason. I just see my role and responsibility as creating, the best environment for them to be successful. And so from that kind of mantra, that's my job for them. And if I'm not creating that space, then I'm doing a bad job. So I'm glad, Melissa, when you see them that you feel, that they're in a place where that's happening. Most days I feel like it's true. But again, no place is, a fantasy land. And there are days that are tough and there are things that happen that are hard. But I do feel pretty confident knowing I have a good group of people and we can do hard things together.
That's really good. I'm even learning a lot here with this, and so I really hope that our listeners are really taking heed to what you're saying. A couple of things that I'm hearing is that one, we need to be intentional. Two, the moment you stop growing is the moment that you stop leading. You have to be able to reflect, and you have to also be able to be vulnerable. And in doing those things, our team, because we're leading by example, does it in return, and then in return to that, we're building culture, we're building trust, and all the things that we would hope would be the gold standard for a team. But like we said, no team is perfect. And that's kind of what I've learned. Melissa, did you have anything you would like to add?
I think for me, I really love what Katie said about borrowed regulation. And I think that resonates with me. And I think that's what she gave me the gift of that nugget of leadership advice that she gave me several years ago. I think carried me through a lot of things that I needed to learn slowly and carefully and thoughtfully. So that's what I'm still taking away from her is just continuing to work at it with baby steps and not rushing the growth that has to happen.
Yes. So there's no time stamp on these things as long as you're continuing to grow, is what I think I'm hearing you say. And that's
Yeah.
good. So Katie, like what would be something that was either covered today or that maybe you didn't get to say because you've said a lot and it's been all great things that you would want to leave with our listeners and our leaders, and particularly when it comes to being triggered or trained and just knowing how to control yourself and generating that emotional intelligence, that emotional regulation.
I think if I'm ending with anything, I would end with an invitation. It's an invitation to leaders who are listening to notice one trigger for themselves this week, to reflect on things that cause all of those fight, flight, freeze, fawn things to happen in their body. Notice something in your week that's causing your heart rate to go up or for you to
Yeah.
delay doing something. The cool news about this is I don't need you to do anything else. Just notice it. You don't have to fix it. But the more you consciously observe your actions, the more you grow. That awareness is
Mm.
probably the key step in all of this because ultimately you don't go from triggered to trained overnight. You go moment by moment. And seeing yourselves in those moments and understanding yourself is really the first step to some more control, which makes my type A personality happy. It might not make everyone happy, but I think as you lean into who you are as a person and what causes you stress, we all gain a little bit of clarity that helps us be more functional.
Ooh, I love that. No overnight fix. Like, I try to always
Mhm.
remind myself and other people whenever they do that it didn't take you like, you didn't get to where you are overnight. You didn't, develop your mindset and the way that you think and the way that you're responding and reacting overnight. So, give yourself some grace. Like,
Yeah.
you know, take your
We're all
time.
human.
I
I
agree.
let it all out in the car. I think you guys have heard. I have horrid road rage. I prefer to drive 95 miles per hour on 95. You
Yep.
see me, just get out of my way.
Yep.
That's my time to be like, let all of the emotions out.
Yeah.
You don't want to hear the things that come out of my mouth, the hand gestures that I make to other people. It would probably make a pretty fun reality show. But like I allow myself the space in my car to like process things immediately without thinking. I don't know that I will ever be okay processing emotions with my road rage, not in real time. So it's about grace and balance. And, everyone has a space where they feel like you can be 100% you, or you can, share things in a different way. For me,
Yeah.
it's the car. Unfortunately, my children are sometimes witness to that. They'll get therapy later in life for it, I'm sure. But they're all going to need therapy eventually anyway. So,
That's good, and you're right. The children, sometimes they're the ones that get the brunt of it, but hey, we still love them and they know that, so
yeah.
but we sincerely wanna say thank you for just taking out the time to be here with us today to spread the love, to let us know that we're not alone in this and that, growth determines kinda like where you land. So you can't really just kinda shy away from things, go with it head on and reflect. So we're so appreciative. Melissa, it's always a pleasure to do this with you. And so everybody have a great night. Thank you for tuning in to Sis Let's Talk Leadership.